Ahoy, mateys, and welcome ye to another edition of History with Mr. Mink. Batten down the hatches, because today we're learning about Ching Shih, the woman who went from prostitution to the most successful pirate to ever dare sail across the top of Davy Jones' locker. Let's go.
So I gotta be honest, when I think of pirates, I think of men. Men who look like Johnny Depp and sail around the Caribbean being gross and talking like this.
What are you doing? What are you doing? No, what are you doing?
I'd heard of Blackbeard, and Davy Jones thinks of SpongeBob.
Welcome to my locker.
But that's pretty much it. Pirates were more fantasy than reality. In all honesty, the pirate I'd heard of most was Captain Hook.
I'll get you for this plan.
It never really dawned on me growing up that pirates even existed outside of the Caribbean. In my mind, pirates just sailed around paradise stealing stuff, singing songs, drinking rum, and dying of very curable diseases.
Why is the rum gone?
The more I learned, the more I found out that simply was not the case. Not only was the most successful pirate of all time not in the Caribbean, they weren't even a man. How can this be? I never heard about this growing up, and I'm guessing many of you didn't either. Ching Shih's early life is fairly unknown. She was born in roughly 1775 around the Guangdong. Oh boy, I did not look how to say that. She was born in roughly 1775 around the Guangdong province, which is in the southeastern part of China. She doesn't really show up in any history for 26 years. In 1801, we catch up to Ching Shih in the Chinese city of Canton, which is modern-day Guangzhou. In 1801, she shows up in history following her marriage to Zhang Yuan, a pretty powerful pirate who had a decent fleet of ships called the Red Flag Fleet. This part is a little icky and sad. Zhang had been forced into prostitution at a floating brothel in Canton, which was more than likely a popular spot for the pirates. Unfortunately, it was common practice back then in China to force girls into prostitution once they reached puberty. This was to help provide for the family. Okay. Historians aren't sure if her marriage was by choice or by force, but one thing is for sure, she negotiated. Known already as a savvy businesswoman, she refused to marry Zhang unless she got half. Half of what, you ask? Everything. Not just half the money. She wanted half the power and decision-making of the fleet. So, to recap, in 1801, a 26-year-old girl working at a brothel in southern China told an established male pirate she refused to marry him unless she got half of his money, business, and decision-making from that point forward. And he agreed! What a boss. Once these two marry, Madame Ching goes all in on the pirate business. And let me tell you, business was booming. At the time of the wedding, the fleet had around 200 ships. After 3 years, they had over 1,800 ships and between 50,000 and 70,000 crew members. They were kind of a big deal. For perspective, in 1801, the American Navy had less than 200 members. It is said that by this time, she was in charge of all the business dealings of the fleet. In 1804, the fleet blocked the trading port of Macau, which was owned by the Portuguese. Portugal's navy showed up and was swiftly defeated. Then the British Navy showed up, but they didn't want none. They just provided escort to Allied ships in the area. The fleet continued their dominance over the area, sacking and plundering basically every ship, fleet, and town along the Asian coast. Sadly, in 1807, Ching Shih's husband was killed in the middle of a typhoon in Vietnam. Fun fact, Ching Shih isn't even a real name. Sadly, her real name is not known. Ching Shih simply translates to Ching's widow. The two had an adopted son, Cheng Pao, who was second in command. Gross fact. He was also Zhang's lover. He actually wasn't adopted until he was 20. Adopting adults was also a common practice at that time in China. The fleet was on the verge of breaking up when she convinced Cheng Pao to give her control, and they got married 2 weeks after the death. Legend has it Ching summoned all the fleet captains who were starting to flee and told them, "Under the leadership of a man you have chosen to flee. We shall see how you prove yourselves under the hand of a woman." The members of the fleet mostly fell in line and became stronger than ever. Those who called for mutiny were hunted down and killed to make an example of. It's not just that she was a female in charge of this massive fleet, it's how she did it. She had strict, ruthless rules put in place in her pirate code that had to be followed. For instance, loot a town that's already paid tribute or assist the fleet, cut your head off. Steal money from the treasury, cut your head off. Attack without strict orders from Ching, cut your head off. Don't follow orders correctly, goodbye years. Apparently you didn't listen anyways. The code also stated female captives must always be treated with respect. Women who were pregnant, weak, or deemed unattractive were to be freed as soon as possible. Attractive women were held for ransom. It was only about money. Rape a female prisoner, cut your head off. Even have consensual sex with a female prisoner. You guessed it. Male pirates were allowed to marry female captives, but it must be mutual and could not be forced. Madame Ching did not even allow premarital sex between a couple who were together. You can probably guess what the punishment for that was. Oh, and don't cheat on your wife either. It wasn't just Jing's ruthlessness that kept her fleet together and growing. It was the basic economics. She was very generous with the percentage of loot her crew received. I wonder why pirates call stolen stuff booty. I'm sure the smell on the ship had something to do with it. Word got around, and many other fleets merged with hers. By 1808, the Emperor of China was getting a little ticked off by the fact that basically his whole empire was being controlled by a female pirate. By this point, if a ship moved in the South China Sea, the fleet knew about it. This wasn't exactly a good look for the Emperor, so he sent his navy after her. Did she run? Did she hide? Yeah, right. Not only did the pirate fleet win, Madame Jing announced any sailors that came to her side would not be harmed. As a result, the Red Flag fleet gained 60 ships and their crew. This was a devastating blow to the Chinese Navy. The Chinese even set their boats on fire, filled them with straw and explosive, and sent them out towards the Red Flag fleet. Jing's fleet simply put out the fires, repaired the boats, and used them in their fleet. The admiral of the Chinese Navy was so embarrassed by his loss, he falsified reports to make himself look better, and then committed suicide. Over the next 2 years, the emperor hired help from Britain and Portugal, but they could not match Jing's Red Fleet. Finally, in 1810, a combination of the fleet splitting up and being pounded by the Portuguese became too much even for Madame Jing, but she did not simply surrender. The emperor offered her and the entire Red Fleet amnesty, or a pardon, if they gave up. But you know Jing, that wasn't good enough. Keep in mind most pirates are hanged. She negotiated for months. Not only did she negotiate that her and her crew were granted amnesty, they were allowed to keep 100% of their stolen loot. Some were even given government jobs, and her stepson/husband was promoted to captain of the Guangzhou Navy. They went on to have 2 kids together, and after Chang Pao died, she moved back to Canton. She spent the rest of her life running a brothel and engaging in various gambling and smuggling operations. After a life of craziness, she passed away in her sleep peacefully at the age of 69. While her business dealings weren't exactly honest or moral, Ching Shih is an amazing rags to riches story, and an even greater example that women have been held back pretty much since the beginning of recorded history. If Ching Shih were a man, I'm sure her story would be much more known. Ching Shih started her life forced into prostitution, and against all odds became the most successful pirate of all time. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. In the description you'll find links to some of my previous videos as well as a link to my Twitter. Thanks for watching!